Hi everybody, welcome to the One Stop Wrestling YouTube channel once again. This time we have an absolutely amazing guest. I've seen not once, but twice recently on AEW Dark. Please welcome Kidd Bandit. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So let's jump straight into it. AEW Dark. How did that come around so quickly?
I think I don't know if it's as much of a public knowledge for a lot of people, but I trained under Cody Rhodes in the Nightmare Factory. I would think that would be the biggest part of what got me on AEW Dark. Is just being his student, learning under him and QT and Glacier, and just I've after the camp that ended, I believe, because the camp ended on my debut, which is on the 27th of, I believe, June. So after the camp ended, I've been working a show every single week since then. Even with COVID kind of like going on a spike, I was able to get bookings, and every week I was working. So I'm on the circuit. I'm working hard on it. But yeah, I think being his student was like the biggest thing that got me on Dark so early in my career.
So you say like obviously training with Cody, training with QT Marshall, but what's it been like training with Glacier? I mean, a lot of like younger fans won't know who Glacier is, but WCW legend. How's that been?
So I never actually did get to train with Glacier, because as soon as we most of what he taught us was on the verbal side of things, because he unfortunately had to get surgery up for his hip, which was a bummer, because I have a very martial arts-esque style, and I would have benefited so much from like getting like some of his stuff passed down to me, which he did. He had some ideas for me, and then he had to go get surgery, so he had to heal his hip, all that stuff. But I've kept in contact with him. I send him some of my material. He was very revolutionary with the way he approached wrestling, in that he presented it as like a very it was very traditional martial arts-esque. You would see his match and you'd think, oh, I'd see that in like Enter the Dragon, or I'd see that over at a Jackie Chan film or something. You wouldn't necessarily see it in a pro wrestling ring. So, but you see martial arts, like you see kicks in New Japan, you see martial arts, like, but they're like the way they're presented is it's like gruff, it's like UFC or like Bellator or so it wasn't like, or K1, but it wouldn't be presented as like it's in a traditional martial arts form that Glacier presented his style, which I believe he did karate, right? So I do kung fu. So when I go in that ring, because of the nature of professional wrestling, I'm able to present the art that I perform in its bare traditional form, not necessarily at the more gruff, personalized aspect that you would use in the street, but like the actual form. And the parallels between how Glacier does his stuff versus how I do my stuff is so good that I was really bummed when he was hurt when I got there. I mean, I'm grateful that I have that networking opportunity and I get to talk to him. He's very accessible. Because I'm one of his students. But yeah, I didn't get to actually train Glacier, but the fact that I'm able to improve as a performer with the knowledge that he imparts is just a testament to how great he is as a mentor.
That's fantastic. What would you say has been the biggest keys to take away working with Cody?
I'm a big Cody mark. I might not be the biggest Cody mark in the Nightmare Factory, but I have a big Cody mark coming into the thing. So the biggest takeaway is that like, the saying, never meet your heroes because they might disappoint you. My biggest takeaway is that saying is not true, because I met Cody and he's even better. He is even better. When you actually meet him, interact with him, learn from him, he's way better than just, like, than you would imagine him to be. Yeah, that's my biggest takeaway from working with being under Cody's umbrella. The other thing is, as far as like the knowledge aspect of what he imparts to you as a coach, he's tremendous with the character work. He has range. He has absolute range, and it's criminally underrated in that. Like
fantastic range.
Exactly. Like he can go from like just like a very like standard pro wrestler when earlier in his career when he was tag teaming with Hardcore Holly, and then boom, 1 second
I saw him wrestle at a Raw Live in the UK, and it's just when Cody had signed for WWE. And I think it was either like his third or his fourth actual television match with Hardcore, and to see how Cody has evolved from, I think it was 2000, I want to say 2007, 2008.
Yeah, so that would be
it's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, my alarm was
Don't worry about it.
All right, there you go. My alarm went off for the interview.
So
is
it a bit of a dream to wrestle Cody on television one day, or has it potentially happened?
What was that? Say again?
A bit of a dream to wrestle Cody yourself on television one day.
Well, I did wrestle Fuego Dos. Do we count that?
I mean, it's becoming legend now, isn't it? Who knows?
I don't know what Fuego Dos's relation is with Cody, but I did get a little bit of a, so Cody is still my dream match, 1-on-1 singles, where I get to be full strength Kidd Bandit, not necessarily just, enhancement Bandit. I mean, I'm grateful for what I did, but I also, one day I would like to showcase who I am, everything I can do, and then some. Because if you're facing your hero, you want to be able to bring the best of you, and so that's something I'm hopefully going to manifest in the universe.
So obviously, you're wearing your DPW t-shirt at the moment.
Yeah.
There's like a huge resurgence of the independents once again, with people coming out of the back end of COVID. I mean, I know cases are spiking, but things are slowly moving back to normal. Where else do you see yourself wrestling this year? Do you have any companies in mind where you want to go?
Absolutely. I think Beyond would be good. I believe GCW is expanding all across the nation. They're
absolutely.
Show coming up. I would love to work GCW, specifically Ninja Matt, because he's crazy. He's crazy good.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, specifically him, Dante, from GCW, Vandegrift. I'm a big Vandegrift fan. I think being able to work GCW will bring a lot of credibility to me as a performer, because a lot of people see me and they see the anime side. They don't see the high flying side. They don't see the wrestling side. Yep. They only see the character side. So I think if I could bring about that, if I could show myself with my insane moves and stuff in a platform like GCW, that would do wonders for my career. I just don't know who to talk to yet. I would love to work for Terminus, which is over in Atlanta.
Jonathan Grisham.
Yep. Yeah, their advertising is a Styles kind of promotion, and I bring a very oriental traditional Oriental style that I don't see a lot in wrestling, but I think it would do wonders because like I know that the five form animal style kung fu, drunken fist, the art of the phoenix, all these like very forgotten like kung fu styles that are like you would see them written in scrolls and stuff, like that kind of stuff. I practice those and to showcase all of these like magnificent like styles outside of cinema, where they're commonplace in like Hong Kong films, they're commonplace in like kung fu wuxia films, but they're not really outside of that. They don't really get much hype. I think at the beginning of like there's the surgence of MMA and UFC, a lot of the fighters who relied a lot of these very aesthetic styles, they got their asses whooped when they faced like a more in your face straight up styles. And so the interest in these arts have dwindled over the years. So hopefully a place like Terminus would be something I could showcase this and bring that back into attention, if
Absolutely.
not like relevance. That's another one I want to do. LA Fights, which is a GCW subset, is in my backyard. I haven't had the opportunity to work it yet, but I would hope to get there one day. Yeah, and FSW in Vegas, because I'm always in Vegas wrestling for the companies surrounding FSW, just not in FSW yet, but eventually I hope to get my foot in the door with that company as well.
It'd be really cool to see. Now, you're talking a lot about the Oriental style. That you are part Philippine, part Japanese. Do you watch a lot of Japanese wrestling yourself, or do you watch a lot of it growing up?
I'm gonna be honest. my exposure to Japanese wrestling was Kenta when he was in Ring of Honor. And actually my exposure to Kenta was actually, I think their partnership with Ring of Honor already ended. So I think he was just doing Noah at the time. So yeah. So he was my first exposure to Japanese wrestling. Him, I mean, obviously Tajiri in WWE was, but he Tajiri's style was very flashy. He wasn't really strong style as much as Kenta was. Shibata, like, so you can't really compare Tajiri to, or Tanaka. Tanaka is kind of strong style, but his more snug. When I think of Japanese strong style, I think like really stiff martial arts, and I think Kenta and to a certain extent Nakamura really personified that. But I didn't grow up following Japanese wrestling, but when I did find out what it was, I had to like look it up and introduce me to like Marufuji, Okada, Tanahashi, all these like wonderful talent in New Japan. Well, it's funny too, because like one of the people I really gravitated to was Nakamura. So when that's like I was a big Nakamura fan, leading up, like literally months leading up to his NXT debut. I was really getting into Nakamura. I was learning a lot of him. It was like I was using Nakamura tapes to like study up on like what I've been missing. And then they got announced he was gonna debut in NXT. So I was like, oh wow, like that's pretty funny. But yeah, that's my exposure to Japanese wrestling. Obviously now as a performer, I do look up a lot of like Japanese wrestling, especially like the Joshis, and less so as like for me to enjoy it, more so. I mean, obviously I enjoy it, but
You're always
go out of my way to learn. Because it's funny. DPW, they had a Joshi match. It was you versus Rio, and I remember watching it. Halfway through, I took my phone out and I started taking notes because I'm like, yeah, you know what I need to do? I need to study this match, and I get to study it like live. So I was literally writing notes as I was watching them because like their style is very unique, very different. And a lot of American wrestling tries to emulate the Japanese style. some people do it really well, like Danielson does it really well. Kevin Blackwood, who wrestles a lot like Danielson, he does the Japanese strong style very well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like if you can emulate it, it will definitely put so much edge in your character. So yeah.
Again, you just touched on character there. I mean, wrestling's changed a lot since what the 1990s and that keeps all. But one thing that's always stayed constant is being characters in wrestling. But what do you personally find? What are the biggest challenges with characters in modern day wrestling compared to maybe what 20, 25 years when kayfabe was a big deal?
Like what's like the biggest difference you say? Like
yeah, so like what kind of what difficulties do you face with characters, considering like how much wrestling's changed?
I wouldn't be able to answer you as far as like how it is backstage because I wasn't around backstage 25 years ago. I was like a year old, but from the styles and the aesthetic, even the presentation is definitely different. Like people like me, you know, who compete in like the male division of wrestling, like we're like 5'5". I'm shoot 5'5". I don't build myself as 5'7". I could build myself as 5'7", right? Especially with my hair. People will be like, oh yeah, they're 5'7". I'm 5'5". I say I'm 5'5". I think it's cool that I'm 5'5". I own that because if I beat someone who's taller than me, it's even better because a 5'5" person just beat you, even though you're built at 6'3", even though you're really like 5'11". You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's the thing is that the presentation is different. Like a lot of like the smaller athletes are getting, you know, a lot of traction. Darby isn't that tall. Orange Cassidy isn't that tall. They're all I think they're taller than me. You know, but yeah, all these talent, you know, they're getting all this traction without having the Herculean physique the pro wrestlers have been, you know, constantly associated with all this time. Obviously, I think some stuff has remained the same. Like, you know, like the larger than life aspect of wrestling is what people really gravitate towards too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's still a thing. I think, you know, psychology wise, you know, the
how important do you think social media is now to up and coming wrestlers like yourself?
Okay, so I got pretty far in my career, all 7 months of it, because thanks to social media. I wouldn't be getting this much traction in my career if I wasn't like navigating the social media aspect of wrestling as good as I am. It is not mandatory. There are wrestlers, you know, Hook never posts on social media, right?
No.
And look at him, like he's blowing everyone's minds. Never talks about social media. He doesn't even do interviews, you know, but you know, it's the way you present yourself, right? Moxley never really does social media. Timothy Thatcher never does social media. All these brilliant like wrestlers like don't need social media to get over. But for those of us who want to use it as a platform, for those of us who want to use it as a way to get bookings, to conduct business, to reach out to fans, to create a following, it is absolutely a tool that you can utilize. And I would recommend it for everyone, especially me, who I think a big part of my success I owe to like how I work Twitter, how I work Instagram. It is a thing, and to have that as a tool is different compared to like, let's say, you know, 20 years ago, 15, even 10 years ago, where social media it's there, but it's disassociated from the product, if that makes sense. Now in 2022, feuds would start because of Twitter. You know, if you're an independent talent, you could start hyping up your match by promoting by shooting promos and feuding with people on Twitter posts. or creating something or teasing something. It's there. It's a platform you can use. And unfortunately, in the indies where production value isn't like, as good as WWE or AEW or New Japan or Impact, it's on you as your performer and the manager of your own brand to create like content for your followers, for people to like get invested on. So if you're looking at it like, okay, so I have a match with, like, let's say, I'm gonna think of a name. Let's say I have a match with Robert Martyr coming up, and manifesting that because he is one of my dream opponents. Oh, I have a match with Robert Martyr coming up. It's for a promotion over in Iowa. I've never been to Iowa. Martyr has never been to Iowa. The promotion just wants to book me versus Robert Martyr. Now, for the people who aren't familiar, they're going to the show or following the social media page, like they're gonna look us up so they can kind of like get a feel for what's going on. And if we take the extra mile, the extra step to like, hey, so I'm gonna shoot a promo against Robert Martyr. I'm gonna throw in some of my moves, some of my clips, some maybe a couple of like character work, some jokes, because I am a comedy wrestler. Maybe that'll get some fans to be invested coming into this show, or vice versa.
Oh, I agree.
So yeah, so when you come out to the curtain and your music's playing, you don't hear crickets because maybe 3 or 4 people in the crowd saw your promo on Twitter and they were excited to see you, what you're all about, what's the hype about, all that stuff. So it's a platform. It's there. Use it if you want. If you do use it, great. If not, it's okay too, because there are people who have succeeded in this business without ever relying on social media, but it is a tool, so you might as well have it,
I absolutely 100% agree with every single thing you said there. It's not something I really want to touch on too much, because obviously with social media does come the negativity.
Oh yeah.
How do you personally deal with the negativity that comes from like social platforms?
I play League of Legends. Oh God. Have a bad day, see something that really strikes a nerve. I go log online, play some League of Legends. Just do good in a game. Maybe I be a little toxic in game. I mean, like not say anything like bad. Just the way I play the game, I could just be like a bully like in game. If that makes sense. Like I'm great at League, because I only play one character in League, and I play that character really well, but I don't advance levels like rank wise, because I only play normal games. So I play my character, I do really, really good, and people get really mad at me, and I'm just happy. Yeah. And that's how I deal with the negativity.
See, I find it so frustrating, because you think wrestling is a sport. It brings so many people together and gives people these wonderful memories, and you think it could be like the greatest fandom of all time. But scroll down Twitter and it's it's interesting, and I just personally think it's so frustrating. But that's a fantastic way to get over it. It's difficult to not let things get to you.
That's what I do. Another thing that really helps is I'm lucky that a lot of the people who support me are very vocal too. So seeing that overwhelming amount of support is very nice. It's validating, because I feel like, because of how new I am in wrestling, I've never met a lot of these people, or they've never actually seen me wrestle, but they're familiar with what I do, and they're very supportive of what I'm trying to portray and the values I'm trying to impose to people, and that's very that's very good. It means that one of the biggest worries I've had as a wrestler is that I was going to appeal to a very niche, small demographic, a very small market. And to see that the crossover appeal has been tremendous is like, wow, like that's incredible that people gravitated to me in the way that they did, so that helps with the negativity. It does get very frustrating sometimes when, like the negative stuff, it gets to you. and it's in your head, and and especially if it happens in person. Like online is different. All you can shut down, but in person,
Yeah.
ooh, like that kind of follows you for a couple of days, you know. Especially if you're not used to it. And I'm definitely not used to it. I've only been doing this for like 7 months, so I'm not used to that. And it's hard, you know. It gets in your head. And you have, at that point you just have to hunt the good things. You have to take a step back. You have to realize what you're doing, all the stuff that you've done. In my case, I've only been doing it for 7 months, and I was in AEW. Like, that's crazy, you know. Like that's
insane. So yeah, you were saying 7 months, and a huge congratulations to you about a huge announcement you made on Twitter about a certain video game.
Yeah.
How insane is that? Who does pro wrestling for 7 months, gets on AEW, and gets into a wrestling video game?
Lucky. I'm lucky.
That must
Let's
be
go with that.
so surreal.
Yeah.
How did that even come around?
They hit me up a couple of months ago about it. And this is before I blew up. This was before DPW, you know. And they already had like in their mind, like, hey, so we're interested in bringing you in. And I believe it's because like people commented it. Like they were like, oh, I want to see Kidd Bandit there, because this was when I was kind of like messing around with my moves. I would film it, I'll post it on Twitter, be like, hey, I came up with this like crazy triple spin kick, you know. That I wouldn't be able to do it in wrestling. I could do it in wrestling if I really don't like the person I'm wrestling, but they'll get knocked out, you know, and I don't want that, right? So I mean, I could do that, you know, and I think I made a comment like, you know, I can't do it in wrestling yet because I'll definitely knock the guy out, but I can do it in a video game. We'll see. And I guess a couple of people tagged them. They reached out to me on Twitter, which is, you know, that's another reason why I encourage people to get on social media. You never know what will happen, right? But yeah, like they reached out to me on Twitter. I said, sure, I'm down. I'm a gamer. I play video games all the time, and I got my start as my creative wrestler from the video games. You know, just bring that character I played at in my career mode, in, you know, my universe mode, into life. So I'm literally my video game character to come to life, and I wanted to bring my moves into a game. And when that happened, they said that they were going to be in Atlanta at the Nightmare Factory doing mocap, and I'm in town that weekend. So I was like, hey, I would like, you know, like the stars have aligned. Let's make something happen. And we did. I asked them, hey, can I film a side-by-side thing where I film my stuff in congruency with this? And they said, yeah, absolutely. So there's that. And everything worked out, I feel like.
That's amazing. Do you see yourself at some point when the game gets released that you will go online and face fans?
You know what? Depends on how good I am in that game, because
yeah, you gotta make sure if you're gonna go yourself, you're gonna have to make sure you're good.
Yeah, absolutely. It depends on how good I am, because I am a gamer, but I don't like playing multiplayer. The only multiplayer game I play is League, and to a certain extent, Eternal Return, and they're both MOBAs. I don't play fighting games. I do, but like I play against PCs all the time. I don't play it against people. So when I do compete with people, I'm very competitive. I want to win. I don't want to lose, especially if I'm being me. You know, I don't want to lose as me against someone else. You know, or they pick me and I'm facing them, and they use my character to beat me up. That's some next level, like, Inception kind of deal. They're gonna beat me using me, and that's you know what I'm saying. So yeah, if I would love to play with the fans, the Brigands, but I don't know. I'm not gonna hold back. And if I get good in that game, or I don't know if y'all still be my fans. You know what I'm saying? Because I ain't gonna hold back.
What wrestling games did you actually play growing up?
I got my start at 07, Smash vs. Raw 07.
Best wrestling game ever. I'm just throwing that in there. 07, best WWE wrestling game ever. Huge love for that game.
I preferred 08, actually.
No.
As much as I love 07 because it's where I started and the soundtrack is amazing, the game is amazing. I like 08 because we had ECW. and the GM mode had you competing with two other companies. So
But
it
you
was
couldn't
like,
go Tommy Dreamer in the GM mode.
Was it Tom? It was Tommy Dreamer. Yeah,
Tommy Dreamer was the general manager, so you couldn't actually play as Tommy Dreamer in the GM mode, which sucked.
Yeah, it was. And ECW only had the one championship because so like
10 wrestlers, one championship.
Yeah, so when you booked your shows, you had to put that title on the line all the time because you can't put like the mid card title or like the specialty title like every once in a while. So yeah, but yeah, no, 08 was one of my favorites. I really liked it because it had, I think it also introduced the character archetypes. So you had like your characters like main style, and then you had like a secondary style. So like with I believe it was Rey Mysterio. He was a high flyer, but he also had but he was also, I think, a showman, or John Cena was a showman brawler or a showman powerhouse.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, or Matt Hardy was a technician, but he was also like I think he had hardcore in his like or RVD had high flying and hardcore. I don't even know if it was in that game or not. Or CM Punk had technician and submission specialist. So like every wrestler had like a double kind of thing, which was cool because like I think every wrestler in the world has a double thing. Like like they have their main thing. In my case, my main thing is I'm a showman, but on my other side, I'm a high flyer. So there's that.
So one thing I do really want to talk to you about is because obviously it's a big part of you is the kind of anime and manga side of you, because you were part of an anime club back in high school. Is that right?
Yep.
What was that like?
I'm sorry.
What was that like? How did you get involved in like being like getting into manga and anime when you were younger?
I grew up watching. Yeah, I grew up in the Philippines when I was a kid, and anime was kind of like the one thing that they had. They didn't really have Saturday cartoon shows. They had Saturday anime shows dubbed in Tagalog. So our cartoons were all anime, basically. We had, I think we had like a couple that weren't anime, like and if you had cable, you had like Cartoon Network or like Nickelodeon. So you had access to those like actual American cartoons, but for the most part, most of our like local entertainment is just like Filipino dubbed anime. So Dragon Ball Z was like big with a lot of like my generation because like that was the one show everybody watched. Naruto was big on everyone's because like that's like that was like on TV every week, and that was one thing. If you're a poor kid in the Philippines and you didn't have cable, you could only watch Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, which had like weird like English names for the characters. For some reason, they got the gender of they got the gender one of the characters wrong because they couldn't tell if it was a male or female. So yeah, like that was it was a big part of a lot of like people's lives in the Philippines because it was when you grew up in poverty, you really only have an escape of like what you can. You find your escape wherever you
Absolutely.
can. I didn't get my PS2 until the PS3 came out. I think might get that wrong. It's been a while, but I remember for a fact that by the time I got to SmackDown vs. Raw 2007, that was my only game for like a year. And the only reason why I was even able to afford it was because 08 was already released by the time I got 07. So yeah, it wasn't fun, but I played the hell out of that game. And when I could afford 08, I upgraded. And then I had 08. I didn't get 09. I didn't get 2010. I waited till 2011 because I wanted to, for the PS3 because I wanted I think I was already I was in America already when I got 2011. So I had a hand-me-down PS3 given to me when I moved to America, and I finally got 2011. And but when I get to America and not a lot of people were into anime, it was kind of like weird because like you go from a community where everybody was into, well, they were only really into two animes. It was Dragon Ball Z and Naruto, because that's the only thing we have, and Pokemon to a certain extent. And when you go to school and not everybody looks at you weird if you're into anime, you're just like, well, this is a culture shock for sure. Like I thought everybody would be into like, I mean, they're all familiar, but they don't know. So yeah, when I was in anime club in high school, I wasn't really like, it's weird because I was in anime club. I never went because I'm so introverted and like, I would go to school and then I'd go home and I'd play video games on my own. I was that kind of person.
I've been there before.
Yeah. And I was always an introvert. I still am. I walk weird when I'm around people, and I've noticed that like the way I present myself when I'm in big crowd, I'm just like self-conscious. I've learned to be a little bit more personable now. But when I'm not comfortable, you could tell because I just turn on professional mode. I'm just like, yes sir, no sir, what would you like to order for Starbucks, sir? Like you turn on your customer service voice when you're not you, and it might come off as like disingenuous to some, but that's just how I deal with it.
Right. So while you're talking about anime, I need you to explain something to me, because it's not something I watched. Explain this Naruto dash, that's now sweeping the social media with yourself. What is the Naruto dash?
So, all right, I've never done I run the ropes like that for fun, because it also helps you with your cardio, because like if you're running without like your arm motion, the inertia's weird. The inertia's different. It's all legs, but when I was structuring the match with Fuego Dos and Fuego del Sol, things kind of got hectic. Fuego was gonna have his match with Tony Nese. Fuego Dos was nowhere to be found. So for some reasons, Fuego Dos sent Cody to to call the match with me, and because I couldn't find Fuego Dos, so we were just trying to come up with this match. And I remember they just said, "We want you to do a dive." I'm like, "I'm down to do a dive, but, I don't want to. I can do over the top. I can step on the rope and do a twist. I can do a springboard moonsault, but it's AEW Dark. The room for error small, so everything I do has to be perfect. And you know what I can do perfect? Suicide dive." And then it didn't hit me. I've never done a suicide dive. I do a suicide dive into a DDT, which is like an upgraded version of it. I've never done just a straight up dive, right? Yep. So I was like, okay. And everyone in AEW does a tope suicida. In fact, whenever he like, whenever someone does a tope suicida, you can just hear Excalibur's voice go, "Oh, tope suicida." I was like, I gotta make a difference somehow. And I was sitting on the apron waiting for that moment where I'm doing that tope. I'm like, all right, what can I do? And I remember Naruto run, because I saw ACH do it in NXT, but when he did the Naruto run as he was diving out. I change it where I do the Naruto run as I'm charging it up, and I'm just doing a regular dive. And people caught it. People said that it fits me. I'm like, cool, like I'll make that my thing. And so now I do it every time. And I did it for my match with Ho Ho Lin. So yeah.
I'm sure somewhere Jim Cornette watched it and pulled out what little hair he has left.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to discredit what he has to say because he's more experienced.
Absolutely not. The guy is a walking encyclopedia of wrestling. But what people like Jim Cornette, why do you think the reason is that they don't evolve with wrestling? Now, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but it's clear that I personally think that he's stuck in his ways. I don't know if it's ignorance, if it's what he doesn't like. But what's your whole take on it?
I think the comfort of familiarity is something that everybody likes. if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. Especially if you invested so much of your life in some ways, it's like let's think about it like with music, right? Back in the 80s, what was the prevalent thing? It was rock music, it was metal, hair metal, glam metal, flamboyant. The 90s, when grunge was coming in, people looked at it like, what is this? This is gross. It's so depressing. And then it took off, and then everyone in the 90s was just grungy. It was just like, oh yeah, we're all different now. We're all flannel and everything. Gone were the hair metal days, right? But it never really left because Guns N' Roses was still touring in the 90s. Power metal was still around. It's just not the mainstream thing. And then grunge died out because it got replaced by, I don't know, emo music in the 2000s, right? Or pop punk or just regular rock and roll, new metal. New metal. Yeah, new metal took over the early 2000s with Linkin Park, Korn, Disturbed, all these hard rock style bands where the grunge style is kind of like, okay, it's still around. Like Smashing Pumpkins didn't break up as soon as
no, not at
Linkin
all.
Park. Yeah, when Linkin Park released Hybrid Theory, it's not like Guns N' Roses decided to split. I think they actually that's bad. I don't think they split, but they were still around, or Metallica was still around, even though the in thing was Linkin Park. 2011, 2010, the 2010s, Escape the Fate, Falling Reverse, all these scene bands, all these post-hardcore bands, they started becoming the in thing. But that doesn't mean that Foo Fighters broke up, no. They're still around. So I think, but if you grew up listening to hair metal in the 80s, all this new music style is so foreign to you that you don't listen to it and go, wow, that's so revolutionary. Sometimes it is. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes people really get into something new. But more often than not, when you're set in your ways, it's hard for you to open your mind, especially when that new thing overtakes what you're comfortable with. When you see the giant Guns N' Roses poster billboard get replaced by Jojo Siwa, suddenly it feels like an attack on what you're comfortable with, what you're familiar with, and that hurts because it part of you is going away. It's such an integral part of something you're passionate about, and it comes off as whatever this new thing that's coming in is it's like a hostile takeover when it's not. It's just the way of the way that the business is evolving into. Think of it as let's say I'll try to put it in wrestling perspective. Back in the day when I'm trying to think of someone or back in the day when Dean Malenko was the stone cold, I mean, not stone cold, but he was icy. He was passionate about the craft. He did all these moves, and he never got the appreciation that everyone in wrestling believes he deserved because he's so good at the craft. But he was underutilized.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. But then you fast forward in WrestleMania 30, where someone who wrestles very, very similar to Dean Malenko and Bryan Danielson is main eventing WrestleMania, where he not only wrestled Triple H and beat him clean, in that ring, he also beat Randy Orton and Batista clean in a triple threat match in the main event. He wrestled 2 matches in that and won the biggest belt of the company, and not just the biggest belt because he had 2 of them. Because it was unified, right? So
it was unified back then.
Yeah, exactly. So, and not to say that Dean Malenko isn't the level of Bryan Danielson, but they're aesthetically very similar. They do a lot of this, they present their craft very similar to each other. It's like a mirror match almost. But at the time, wrestling wasn't ready for someone like Dean Malenko, but they were ready for Bryan Danielson in WrestleMania 30. And, I'm sure there's a ton of variables, a ton of factors that play into this, why it didn't work out for Dean then, but it worked out for Danielson and in our era. But the fact is, it's, like the business evolves the way it does.
I totally agree with you. Cause I would find myself, if I've just got like an hour or two and I want to watch some old matches, I'll revert back to watching, as you said, Rob Van Dam, the Hardy Boys, Stone Cold Steve Austin matches. Because as you say, it's your comfort zone, it's what you're comfortable with, it's what you grew up as. And I think you're absolutely spot on. That's like one of the main problems with people like Jim Cornette in the business. It's they're getting on, and it's the same as Vince McMahon. We all know Vince McMahon is stuck in his comfort level. He's not necessarily booking any shows wrong or anything. He's doing it 101, but it's his comfort zone. So I 100% agree with you. On that.
Like, it's weird, It's like I like to think I'm an open-minded person, but what if in 10 years I see someone do something in wrestling that's never been done before, and I just don't like it, because it doesn't feel, it's not something I grew up on, and that's a lot, I think that's what's happening with a lot of like the older fans, is when they're getting into wrestling and they look at the turn on the product and they're seeing Jericho and they see him older now. He's no longer the flamboyant rock star, like young hot blood that like tries to like take on like these big names. No, he is the big name. He is the draw now. He is the legend to beat. But when you made like your career, going into Raw and like going toe to toe with The Rock in a promo, like, hey, like, no, he's no longer that person to them. And that's the disconnect. It's like watching wrestling and seeing the product tonally shift from when you first started or when you were growing up on it to what it is now. It's like you're also confronting, the reality of, hey, you're getting older. You're not as cool anymore. A lot of us have a hard time forgetting about high school because, I'm years removed from high school and I still look back and like, wow, high school me was like an integral part of me. Like, that's where I found out a lot about myself. And it's hard for me to like stop looking at myself the same way I did with who I was in high school. So, like I said, like the comfort of familiarity is like the biggest thing, I think.
Totally agree with you. So the next kind of topic I want to bring up is you're quite vocal about being a part of the LGBT community. How do you think wrestling is at the moment with just being acceptance? Have you found any difficulties or anything? Or do you think it's an industry that's slowly moving with the times, or has it got a lot of ground to cover yet?
Publicly, I think, yeah. Everybody wants to say, yeah, we're progressive, because hey, if you don't, everyone's gonna cancel you, right? So yeah, publicly, absolutely, yeah, 100%. Privately, backstage, there has been some stuff, not anywhere in particular, like, and thankfully not in AEW, because like AEW is so progressive, it's awesome, right? Like they got Nyla Rose, they got Sunny. Yeah. It's like, wow, Diamante, like, wow, like this is progressive as hell. So that's the goal, right? Is to be part of that. But outside of the AEW, when I work the indies, I don't get as much hate publicly. Privately, when you can tell, right? It's one of those things like,
what do you think the biggest problem is?
Yeah. What was that?
What do you think the biggest problem is with that? Why, as you're saying, like privately, do you think it's older wrestlers? The way
not necessarily. No. I think the problem just stems from where you come from, coming into wrestling. Your upbringing, and just personal upbringing. Like you can't really teach hate. You can't teach. Yeah, you can't teach people to hate someone. You can tell them to hate someone because that's just how it is. Like I've met straight people who are straight as straight can be, and they're not homophobic because they didn't get brought up with like the notion that like being gay is a sin or it's unnatural. It's not. But I understand if that's all you've known your entire life, then it's hard to undo that. I was talking to Takahata about this, right? And he brought up a story that that was imparted to him by a teenage trans person. And they asked, what do you do when somebody misgenders you? And the response was like, I don't get mad because it's not just a transition for myself, it's a transition for everyone else too. And that is so profound. Like that sounded so profound, And I was like, oh wow, that's really, I'm stealing that. But yeah, it's one of those things where if you go around expecting everyone to understand, then you're in for a rude awakening because not everyone will understand. And it doesn't just correlate to the LGBT aspect of like the world. That correlates to everything because everyone will always have a different opinion. Everybody, and understanding that you're not going to be able to please everybody, that's a hard part, especially in a business where your ultimate goal is to get people to get over, right? You want to please as many people as possible so they're loud enough when they cheer for you or when they boo you, to the point where people who are like looking for talent, who are looking for like people to like bring up into like their companies, will have that buzz,
Yeah.
You want to get over with the fans, but you gotta understand you can't win everyone over.
No,
you have to be okay with
unfortunately, the world doesn't work that way.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like I used to work at Domino's. I used to work at Domino's, and I like to think I'm a solid employee. I closed every night. Like I always cleaned really good. My boss, my managers all like me. I have an employee who just didn't like me. Eventually, right when I was leaving, I asked them, why don't you like me? And they said it's because the car I drive is the same car their ex-boyfriend drove. That was it. And I talked to them. I was like, really? That's why you don't like me? He's like, yeah, your car just reminds me of my ex. That's it. I never had a problem with you. And I'm sorry I'm such a bitch. And I'm like, oh.
That's insane.
Yeah, right? But like, you never know why people don't like you. And if you spend all that energy trying to, I'm fortunate enough that I got people who actually do like me. So I'm going to spend my time doing this for them. Yeah, it would be nice to win over like detractors to change people's minds about me. But I'm not going to go out of my extra effort to zone in on that one hater. Because like I feel like that's the problem that people have with social media. With like wrestlers, like I can't name anyone from the top of my head, but they would find someone who calls them out or says, "Oh, I think your shit is trash." Okay, so sorry by the way for cussing. Don't
worry.
Okay, good. So yeah, they like a wrestler, fairly successful. They see someone like shitting on them, they're like, "Oh yeah, let me go ahead and zone in on that hater." But if you look at everybody else, they're all so wholesome. Like all the hundreds of people love on you. You get one person say it's shit, and suddenly you want to take all that 100 people validating your actions, throw it out the window, and say, this hater is where I'm focusing all my energy on. And I'm just like, brother, like.
You've had 100 people validate you. Why this one person?
So I made it my personal thing to like, hey, I'm not gonna do this for the people. I'm not gonna do this for the people who didn't believe in me. I'm not gonna do it to change their mind. I'm not gonna do it to like rub it in their face. I'm gonna do it for the people who believe in me now, because like they're already on my side. I don't gotta do anything, dude. I gotta just keep being me, So that's where I'm focusing my attention on. And as far as like the LGBT aspect of things, like if I can't undo years, generations of upbringing just because I meet them or I wrestled them or I'm in the card with them. I cannot undo that homophobia because that is so deep in their system. All I can do is show that despite who I am as a person and how much that clashes with all the ideals that you've been taught growing up, that I'm still going to be a good person to you, regardless of how you feel about it. Yeah. I think it doesn't hurt to be nice to everyone, because you never know where anyone ends up. So that's how I feel.
I've always grew up believing if everybody in the world was the same, it'd be a very boring world.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's going to take a very, very long time for everybody in the world to accept everybody in the world. And I don't think anything like that will ever happen in our lifetimes.
No.
But you've got such an amazing approach on it. It's fantastic. Yeah.
To think that if we think that the world will be kumbaya in our generation, and it's very naive to think so.
Yeah.
But it's not naive to surround yourself with the people who already like you and to not go out of that bubble to find the one thing or the small minority or the big minority of people that hate you and try to get them on your bubble, like
totally agree.
Yeah, like all right, so let's say I have I'm sorry, I'm like, okay, let's say I have an ice cream store, right? Let's say I have an ice cream store and people go to my ice cream store to buy ice cream, but then there's a bunch of them who are allergic to peanut butter or peanuts. So they obviously don't get the peanut butter ice cream, but then I'm doing a special on peanut butter ice cream. Would I tell these allergic people to buy my peanut butter ice cream? No, because one, it will kill them. And two, they probably don't like it anyway, right? Or they can't like it because, whatever.
Yeah.
But for the people who love peanut butter, hey,
you're gonna tell them.
That's the target demographic there, yo. Yeah, those are the people I want buying my stuff. So that's why I'm gonna focus my energy on, because, anyway, that's a cool analogy.
Right. So I have a quick fire round of questions for you. Don't worry, it's not this big. So first question, what was the first wrestling show you watched on TV that you can remember?
SmackDown. The very first segment was when Dominic was in the custody ladder match and Eddie gave Ray a brainbuster on the steel steps and said, "I'm your papi." Yep.
That was an amazing SmackDown. I still remember that. First wrestling show you ever attended in person?
It will be a Raw house show. It will be in Manila, Philippines, and I had the cheapest seats in the house, which I looked it up, and the ticket cost will be 25 cents, I think.
No way. That's
25
crazy.
American dollars. 25 cents American dollars. Yes, I think that's how much.
Your all-time Mount Rushmore of wrestlers.
Okay, Cody Rhodes. No, Cody Rhodes, Bryan Danielson, Jeff Hardy, and CM Punk.
Interesting. I mean, that's quite a good Mount Rushmore to have.
It rotates. The only one I don't really like ever taking that away from that is Danielson and Cody. So yeah.
Cool. Favorite wrestling pay-per-view of all time?
NXT TakeOver Dallas. The very first one, I think.
Cool. Dream opponent, any company, any generation. You can pick anyone you want.
RVD.
I would actually pay to watch that match. I'm not going to lie to you. I am a huge RVD mark.
Yeah, prime RVD too. Like, I mean, I'm sure he still can go, but like, I want him when he was like 06 RVD. You know what I'm saying?
Fantastic year for RVD.
Mhm.
Goals in wrestling for 2022.
Get signed. You know, hopefully all elite. Wrestle 101 in Dynamite against anybody. I just want to prove I can go. Invent the crazy move that I know nobody else can do because I'm crazy like that. Never get on Botchamania. I mean, I already did get on Botchamania, but I did the intro. So the only my goal is to only be on Botchamania as that intro. There you go. Wrestle more at home. I never wrestle at home in LA, which kind of sucks. But that's also because our events are getting canceled left and right because of COVID. Win singles gold because I have this championship, but I don't have a singles title yet. So hopefully win one singles championship. And yeah, it's pretty much it from the top of my head.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to do this. This has been so much fun. I hope everybody who's watched it has really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope so too.
And I am making the bold prediction that Kidd Bandit will be signed somewhere in 2022. I wish you all the success going forward. It's been an absolute privilege. And remember, if you've watched this video, to comment, like, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
You too.